Guys, this is Chris. Chris is awesome. Chris is one of my favorite people. I'm super, super glad that he's here today. Chris, let's give us a little bit of background, because I know there's like a lot of agents who like won't know who you are. Talk a little bit about like your history and tell us a little bit about kind of how you ended up with us.
Yeah, I think I ended up with you guys. I think the way that a lot of people do is I got targeted.
I found you.
Yeah, yeah, you're like the duct cleaning service. Don't call us, we'll call you. But in a good way. So I had been searching. I had like a pretty good start to my real estate business. I'm just kind of coming up on the start of my 5th year in the business. And I had a really good start. I did a lot of online leads, and I paid a lot of money for those leads for a third party to do it. And I was, slaving and grinding away. And while I was doing that, I was kind of looking for the easy button. I was looking for that, like, how can I not in a lazy way, but I just got to like take some of the pressure off. There's too much.
You were just kind of feeling the squeeze.
Yeah. And when I first started selling real estate, I had 1 kid, and now I got 3, and like things have gone berserk. So, but I'm a kind of guy that likes, like I like to pile more on.
Yeah.
I do like having that, pressure, that reason to get up in the morning sort of thing. But I was looking for sort of like, how can I make the not so pleasant parts of the business easier or just go away?
For sure.
And so I did a bunch of other coaching. I tried some other coaching methods. I tried buying crap off the internet.
Yeah.
I tried IST. I hired assistants that weren't properly vetted. I was like, you're a warm body. You
can help me.
You can help me. And none of that stuff so really ended up working for me, obviously. Yeah. And so eventually I found like the next silver bullet, which was you. And I was like, oh, sweet, the listings lab. And you told me it was going to be hard, and I was like, okay, I like hard, but I didn't really know, like, I didn't know how hard. And it was hard. Like, it was really quite difficult because it wasn't just about doing the work. It was about a lot of self-reflection. It was about
changing the way that you think about things, for
sure.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of hard things in my life, and I'm going to say real estate together with the listings lab is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think that's saying something. So, and that includes like 3 kids, the whole business, like all of this stuff was really hard.
You fought it for a while.
And I did. I fought it not for a while, for a long while. I was like a year of kind of like trickling through the listings lab stuff and like half doing it. And then I went to the listings lab live, the last and only live that
it's coming. It's not the last. Don't say things like that.
No, but the last one, the last one that we were all able to do. And and I kind of came in as a bit of a skeptic on the whole thing. Like I was a lot like Justin, like maybe I'll pick a couple of things up here that I can go and implement. I had no intentions of signing up. And even I remember that it was maybe the second of 3 days, and you're like, okay, this is what we're launching.
What we've got.
This is what we're doing. And I remember I was like, cool. That looks cool. And I went home. And I even woke up the next day and I was like, nah.
Yeah.
I'll continue just kind of poking away here and doing
your thing.
Doing my thing. And it was actually like, it's not that you're not a compelling person or anything like that, but it was Ashley that actually ended up.
Yeah.
I told you that at the time. It was when she got up and I started to see the value of your team.
Okay, so for those of you who are watching this who don't know who Ashley is essentially my right-hand woman. And she is she's our head of product, she's our head coach, and I love that you said that, because I think a lot of the time people think it's just me, and it's not. It's never just me. And I think that's also something that you've learned in your own business.
Yeah.
That it's not just you, and it's not just about you.
Yeah, and this is like, I'm surprised it took me as long as it did to sort of figure that out, because in my previous life, I was a coach.
Yeah.
And I was a part of a team that helped athletes get to the Olympics. And before that, I was an athlete, and I had this incredible team of people that I put around me. That, I mean, without those people, there's just no hope. I mean, I probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Yeah.
But I was a slow learner then. I'm a slow learner now. And so, what I did realize, though, at that listings lab live was that you had a team. And that's where it clicked for me, was that you had people that were as or more capable as you in particular areas, and you guys stressed that. And so that's when I started to take a look at my business, but I was still slow to implement, because, like I said, I'm a slow learner. And I kind of, COVID happened, and started like figuring out how things are going to go. And I would show up to those calls. But, I was showing up in body only.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I was hearing what you were saying, but I wasn't implementing it. And a part of me wasn't really believing it either. I was like,
that it was possible even.
Yeah. As in victimhood, right? Like, as you like to say, I was a little bit of a victim about what was happening. And because everything that I was doing before wasn't working anymore. Like, it just didn't. I would call people, and I didn't know how to talk to them, because they were victims, and it was not a great sort of situation. And then we had a chat, actually. I think you and Ashley, and I can't remember if there was somebody else on the call, but basically I got, like, it was a bit of an emotional moment where I like realized that this was on me. I could overcome this. And COVID schmovid, or whatever you want to say, we kind of like, and that's, I remember I was saying to you, like, I'm like 3 months from a cliff here. Like, I'm like,
I know.
in 3 months
It was
from
a
now,
rough time.
in 3 months from now, I have to sell my house.
Yep.
The cottage gone. We were already selling all of our assets in Hamilton, just to kind of stay above water. And my wife didn't even really know, because I was like, it's a good time, let's sell this stuff, right? Like, she didn't know.
She didn't really know what was going on. Yeah.
She knew something was up. Well, obviously she's not dumb. So
and then what happened? And then, like, what shifted?
Yeah. So then in September, that's sort of like after that conversation, I started to take some responsibility for it. And I started to listen to what you guys were saying. I took a leap and brought on Elaine, my assistant. I brought her on part-time, and I was really lucky to have found her. And instantly sort of recognized, I was like, this person is the person I've been looking for.
Yes.
And I got lucky there. Like, we didn't vet her. We didn't do a Colby test. We didn't do anything. She just came in the office, and she started doing things that I immediately noticed.
Yeah.
And that's when I got consistent with my media, with the social media. And that's where I could actually implement the things that we had been talking about. And what I really needed to do was just take a leap of faith in myself and the program and everything else, and just press play.
And just do it.
Yeah, just press play.
Yeah.
And she helped me to do that. And then, within a couple of months, I brought her on full time. And that was sort of like through to Christmas. And Christmas was like, things were okay, but I mean, we were still like, now we're 4 months from the cliff instead of 3. Right?
Yeah, we're essentially just like moving.
We're moving back a bit, but it's still not super great. And it was just a lot of like, maybe future business.
Yeah.
And then January happened, and it was like, it has been it's been a 6-figure per month rainstorm.
It's so funny that you say that, right? Because I constantly tell people, if you're consistent, it will compound. If you're consistent, it will compound. And what you're experiencing from January until now is the compound.
Yeah. And it's every week it gets crazier.
Yeah.
And like we notice it by week. And so, I brought on a buyer agent. He came on a week and a half ago.
Mhm.
And I told you just before our call, I mean, the
Yeah.
guy's going out of his mind right now. He's like, I've never experienced anything. This is crazy. I was like,
Like,
yeah,
he
this is
has so much
crazy.
business.
I was like, you got like three things on your plate right now. Like, you just wait, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm holding back. I'm still doing buyer deals that you should be doing.
Yeah.
You just wait until I open the floodgates, and I'm only giving him a trickle of leads as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Which is the other. I mean, it's the other thing is just the amount of leads that are coming in, and the way that they're turning is
Mm.
incredible.
Mm.
Um,
And in a low
yeah,
inventory market, you have listings.
I have more listings than I think I have more pending listings right now than I did in the last 2 years.
Okay.
Like, we're I've we just sold one. We got three coming out next week, and then we got like I think four more loaded up that will be coming out between now and the second week of April.
Mhm.
And then we have another whole like a part of our Monday. We spend an hour on Monday just reviewing our current clients. An hour,
These are
which
great.
is
These
like
are such good problems.
I'm tearing up. I'm like, I can't even believe. And I was hitting you on Slack today. Is like, okay, like my assistant needs an assistant.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Um,
at a point now where Elaine needs like a VA or something.
yeah, I
Yeah.
need somebody just to basically take care of, because I'm my position as a real estate agent is like I'm a problem solver. I love logistics,
Yeah.
but I love logistics in a organizational way, not a doing way.
Mhm.
So I'm like, you do this and you do that, and then this will come here and order that, and then
Together.
everything falls where it's supposed to
Yeah.
go. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's how I love logistics. And so I've had a couple of clients now that I have a team to make it all happen. It
Yeah.
happens at this like crazy lightning speed, where we bought a house, and then the client goes, okay, well, we got 2 months to close, but I want to sell my place right now.
Yeah.
And we bought on Friday, and by Sunday, all the pieces were in place. The cleaners, the stagers, the movers, everything was organized. And this guy's like,
How did this happen?
he was like, "You guys are awesome."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Thank you."
Because it's not just
Yeah,
Chris.
and this guy's it's interesting because he's sold 7 times before. He's
Yeah.
moved 7 times, and he's like, "I have never experienced anything quite like this."
Well, and that's the thing. The thing that I want to make really clear is that a single agent on their own cannot provide a service like that when they're busy.
Yeah, no, there's
Right.
no
And
way.
so the beautiful part of this is the way that it all works together. The team, you having a team, and I think there's a fear with a lot of people that if I have a team, people are going to be unhappy, or they're not, like, no one's going to do as good a job as I'm going to do. But what you've experienced is actually the opposite.
Yeah,
That you having a team means that your service is better.
yes, that's right. Way better.
So
And
okay, so
yeah.
now that it's raining,
Hmm.
talk to me a little bit about, like, you know, the thing that I want to stress is that things were bad, things got a little bit better, and now, like, the conversations that we're having now are completely different. We're having like high level strategic conversations about how to further leverage and further scale, as opposed to how to get out of the hole.
Yeah, and I think there's that, but and I think it's interesting that a lot of people get stuck at what I think is you and your team's lowest value.
Mhm.
People get stuck at the creating content and doing systems and all that stuff. I I think you guys bring incredible value there, don't get me wrong, but your greatest value comes after that. Like that's where now all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, that's why you're expensive." Right? Right? Like, "Oh, I get it." Like, you can actually make this the business that I wanted
Yeah,
without me having to reinvent the wheel.
yeah,
And I've talked to a lot of different coaches, and I've talked, like, a lot of different brokerages and people that promise you the moon. and nobody delivers. Nobody actually really knows what that formula is and
Yeah.
how to make it happen.
Yeah.
And what's different about what I'm experiencing right now with you guys is that you are constantly evolving
Yeah.
and tweaking and changing,
Yeah.
which, like, not so happy about the move from a sauna to
You're
air
gonna love
table.
it when we do it.
But when it's done, I'm sure I'm gonna like it. But like, it was like, thanks for the wrench. I'll just throw that in the works right now. And, um, but but that's something that I think a lot of people are afraid to do
Yeah.
because they think it makes their business look weak.
No, and we look at it very differently. Whereas that, okay, so this works.
Mhm.
Just because it works doesn't mean it's finished.
Yeah, and that's I think the other thing that you guys did that really made the difference for me, and where the things really started to change, was in the 7FA group,
Mhm.
where you went from everybody being put into the same bucket
Yeah.
to having individual skill buckets that were addressed in a timely way.
Yeah.
And as soon as you did that, I could start to see what the root is a lot more
A lot
clearly.
faster.
Because I mean, like, it's like you guys are asking for us to build a team and to compartmentalize, and it wasn't that same experience coming from you
Yeah,
guys
and now it
until
is.
you made that change. And
Yeah.
then as soon as you did, for me, everything clicked.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, I could actually do that in my business. Like,
100%.
there's no need for me to know that Elaine is right now removing curtains and a bunch of garbage from a listing that we're getting ready. I don't need to know that. She just sent me some pictures. He's like, I'm throwing these disastrous drapes in the garbage. And I said, yes, please.
Yes, please.
But she's doing that, which is awesome.
So what would you say is, like, because I know that there's a lot of little things that have shifted. And I think there's something that you said early on that I think that I want to just sort of hammer home, that the initial shift for you actually was you.
Yeah.
It was you really saying, okay, they're responsible to me, not for me.
Yeah.
And instead of just kind of, and I think there's a lot of agents out there who are absorbing a lot of information, but not actually doing the thing. And I think that I remember, like, as soon as you started implementing, and as soon as you started, there was an element of personal responsibility that you took, that you were like, okay, this is my business. I have really great guidance here, but I have to use it.
Yeah.
And it really shifted things.
Yeah, it did. And it made, I don't know how it comes across on your end, but suddenly the communication seemed, like, when I was sending something over Slack, it was it was a lot more pointed, a lot more directed. Like, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And I think part of it was like, how do you, getting to that point where you know what the right questions to ask
Yeah.
are is really, really hard.
Yeah. And I
Um,
say that all the time. And my coach says that to me, even, the better questions that you ask, the better answers that you get.
mhm. Yeah, and it changed, I think, also the way that I approach clients and listings and the buyers. All of that stuff becomes a lot clearer for them too, because
Yeah.
you're coming at them from that sort of like, I want to know more about you first
Yeah.
approach. Um, so I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and that's going to lead to maybe some questions that I've never asked any client before. But at the end of it, I did a listing appointment yesterday, and at the end of it, um, all I did was ask them questions about what they wanted
Mhm.
and how they envisioned this process, why they moved to that house in the first place. Um, and I, at the end of it, they were like, "This is great. Well, why don't you come over next week, take a look at the house, and we'll get a value, and then we'll get going."
Mhm.
And I realized at the end, I was like, "Okay, sounds good." And I hung up, and I was like, "You know what? At no point did I ever tell them what I was going to do for them."
Yeah, and I think that you're 100% right. There's this old school mentality of the listing presentation.
Yeah.
And the truth really is initially it's just a listing conversation.
Yeah.
And the conversation needs to be more, I said this at the Listings Lab Live and people thought I was crazy. The best salespeople ask 72 questions. Right. And that's really been a shift that I think a lot of people are making. They're asking more questions and spending less time talking. And it actually works for them.
Yeah, it does. And it helped me with the Listings Lab to just start asking better questions.
Yeah.
Start thinking about what is it that I need. And every once in a while presenting a problem that I don't have an answer for. Like Elaine's head just spun off in the next room. How do I put it back on? But and a lot of the stuff too, like I asked that question and the answer back from Carolee was get her to do a task audit. And I was like, oh, interesting. She's in the middle of doing one right now. And she's been doing one for the last 4 days.
Yeah.
So that we can offload some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And again, like this, I would have never have thought to do that without you guys.
What would you say, what would you say is like if you were going to give somebody like the number one piece of advice or like the number one thing that you're like, this was game changing for me?
I want to say it, but it sounds like it's like everybody tells you this. You should actually hire an assistant.
Get help.
You should get help first.
Yeah.
And not just any help. And that was the mistake that I made. I was driving around with a client and I was like, I'm thinking about hiring an assistant. They were like, oh, my daughter's looking for a job. And so I hired her because it was easy and convenient. Yeah. And it was a disaster. I lost the client. And she was a terrible assistant. So it wasn't a great idea. That was a bad idea. And
I think too, like there is a process for hiring that is, again, needs to evolve with the times. And I think understanding how to communicate, you've been very good with Elaine at being able to communicate what her role is and what you need her to be in charge of. Like, what does success look like for her role? And I think a lot of the time what happens is agents wait until they're so busy that they actually don't have time to properly onboard anyone. And then they end up, just because they're scrambling all the time, they end up having to take things back from the assistant, and then they don't see the value that the assistant brings. You actually, as much as you weren't necessarily 100% like killing it yet, you hired at the right time.
Yeah. And that was part of the luck, right? Like it just happened to be the guy down the hall had a part-time assistant and he came down and he was like, hey, like, my part-time assistant needs more work. Do you think you could, fill the gap? And at the time, the answer was no. Actually.
Yeah.
At the time I was like, nah, not sure how I'm going to pay the mortgage, let alone my taxes or anything else.
Like, yeah. There was a whole lot of stuff going
on. And so I was like, you know what? There is a bunch of stuff that I could have somebody doing that will build my business, including, we built that template in Asana for the content calendar. And that was like one of the first sort of things that I tasked her with that. And I was like, build this, here's the paper, put that into the computer and we'll upload it and we'll stay a month.
And we'll stay relevant. We'll stay in front of people. The consistency will be there. Yeah.
And we'll create the content so that we're always a month
ahead.
So if I don't get to it for a couple of weeks, it's not the end of the world. And so doing that, that's, that was where some of the changes started happening, where people were like, hey, I see your stuff. I love your stuff. And it became like, one guy's like, Chris, I turned you off. And I was like, awesome. Like, he's a friend of mine in the neighborhood. He's not moving. And I told him, like, our kids are friends. You're not allowed to move. But he was like, it was just like, it was always just something that was coming in.
Well, and that's the thing, like that you can, and this is the thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, is that you can be in front of people and consistent, and that is what makes you top of mind. It's what makes you that first person, and it also builds that relationship. You're not getting a lot of, I mean, I know you get some, but you're not getting a lot of, hey, I'm interviewing 10 other people.
Yeah, it's happening less and less. Like
Yeah.
now it's more and more that sort of thing. And the other thing, like I hear all kinds of different comments on the social media platforms, but probably the one that I think everybody that's watching this should strive for. So I have a friend of mine that is a pretty big deal developer. He's a
Yeah.
real estate developer, and they build a lot of pre-construction, projects and stuff like that. And he was like, Chris, I'm really impressed by your social media because you don't repeat anything. And he's like, I can't believe how much you have to talk about. It's relevant. And it's relevant. It's
Yeah.
like he's like, every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, that's a good piece of information. That's nice that he does it that way. But it's packaged in a way where it happens so quickly, that people are just like, damn, I just got a good piece of information.
Yeah. And it's, it's the way that you said that is actually really great. Like it's packaged in a way that it's easy to digest, it's easy to consume, but it's consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end, at the end of a year of my content, you could probably, I don't know, maybe even sell some real estate if you wanted to.
Right?
Yeah.
Give so much value that people are like, well, like this guy is like, he's the guy. There's no one else. I just really wanted, like, Chris is one of those stories where I think it's really important, especially when you are where he was, where you're feeling victimized by the industry, by your business, by whatever, things are feeling very rough, that there is always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And now, less than a year later, because we are less than a year later, he's like, I have more business than I know what to do with. I am like literally raining business. My team is growing. I mean, I'm doing some hiring for Chris right now. I'm hiring someone for me. He needs the same thing. So I'm looking for two people, one for me, one for Chris. So we're in a situation now where the business, he's created scalability and almost unlimited scalability within the business. And I think that's really important to note, is that a lot of the time we kind of get in our own way, and it's, just because you are where you are right now, it may feel very hard. I remember it felt really hard for Chris. And now we're in a situation where, like, I get messages from him sometimes and he's like, I can't believe I'm here. And that's such a beautiful thing, because literally 90 days can make all the difference in the world. A year can literally be two completely different realities. And I think that's really, really important to remember, especially when you feel like things are not great, to understand that, like, you actually have a tremendous amount of power and opportunity, and that things can become really great. Chris and I were having a conversation the other day about the fact that he's now about to build his, like, he's about to build like his essentially dream house.
Yes.
From the ground up.
Yeah.
And how we're going to document that and how we're going to use it, and strategies to make it even better. And these are not conversations we were having a year ago.
Yeah, 3 months ago, that build was like ready to be put on hold.
Yeah.
We were kind of charging forward with it, but
yeah. But like I said, like massive. And I mean, I think as of right now, you're on a 7-figure run rate for this year.
Yeah, well into
a 7-figure run rate for this year.
Yeah, as of last week, for the year, I surpassed my best year ever before.
And it is middle of March.
It's the middle of March.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for talking to everyone. If you guys have any questions, just let us know. Yeah. So if you guys have questions for Chris, just let us know, and we'll answer anything that you have. But Chris is literally, like, use Chris's story as like the beacon of light if you're feeling a little down right now.
I have a great piece of, it's like a saying that I would like to leave on.
Perfect.
And I always, because I used to do a lot of youth coaching, a lot like young kids that wanted to aspire to go to the Olympics. And it's such a huge, long way to go from just learning how to do something to being an Olympic champion. And the saying that I always gave myself and that I continue to is, why not me? It's going to be somebody. So why not me?
100%.
And then just kind of remember that, like, it's, you have the ability to be able to make it you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're watching this, why not you?
Why not you?
Thanks, Chris.